All right, so we've looked at
Thank
thank you. So we've looked at 4 chapters on the ICAN case study paper, and we've examined the first to the 4th chapter, and we've looked at one past question. We're supposed to also look at a past question after the 4th chapter, but unfortunately the full report is not ready due to some commitments and office engagements that has hindered me from completing the report, of which I plan to do that this weekend. So by Tuesday, we will look at that full report, March, June, or March, July 2020 past question. A very technical question, very technical, and not the conventional way the examiner has tested the case study paper. It was quite a technical and a tricky paper, so I needed time to really look at that paper and provide a good report that will resonate with every student and whoever comes across it. So instead of having today blank, we decided to move ahead with our lectures, and by Tuesday we'll be able to look at that paper, because we were supposed to look at, after 2 chapters, we look at one past paper, a full debrief review of that paper. So after 2 chapters, and we have currently 11 chapters in the current study text, and if we finish that 11, we should have done about 5 past papers, which would really provide us some leverage and preparation, I'm trying to get the right words now, the preparedness with those 5 papers to look at how to tackle those questions before they sit for the November case study paper. Okay, so having explained that, or having said that, we'll be looking at chapter 5 today. We've got chapter 1, the introduction, chapter 2, financial statement analysis, chapter 3, financial data analysis, chapter 4, business reorganization and capital reconstruction. And today we're looking at chapter 5, business analysis. Also, after the first 2 chapters, we looked at November 2019, and all the videos are on YouTube. The channel is on the link. So please take your time to revise them if you have not, so that you can follow through and understand the journey and where we are coming from, and also glean from them to help you understand how to go about the case study paper. All right, so the content of the business analysis, will be speaking to the first area, speaking to the purpose. What's the purpose of the business analysis? We need to clearly define the purpose. And also we introduce business analysis in the first unit. And after that, we look at operational and strategic analysis. And that will be unit 2. And after unit 2, we'll look at the third unit. Unit 2 will be looking at operational and strategic analysis, business trust, and ethical awareness. Then for unit 3, we'll be speaking to operational and strategic analysis in case study specifically. Then unit 4 is not in the current study text. Is a new topic that was integrated in the new syllabus, and we've integrated it, or we brought it in so that we can provide context to it, and that's sustainability reporting. It's in the new study text. It's in the new syllabus that was reviewed. If you check it in the study text, you will not find it. So we added it so that you can understand what sustainability and how to apply it to the case study exams and what it's all about. Also, the 5th unit will be looking at responsible investments and the equator principles. It's also a new topic integrated into business analysis in the new syllabus review. And finally, the last unit will be looking at techniques for answering examination questions relating to business analysis. Generally, we're analyzing a business based on exhibits which are tailored towards financial and data analysis And that's what business analysis generally entails. So that's the chapter content and what we'll be looking at. So by way of purpose, after this chapter, we should be able to understand what business strategic and operational analysis involves. We'll be able to also carry out operational and strategic analysis in the case study exams and also understand techniques on writing or answering examination questions. So before we start, I think for those that are on the call, we normally have an interactive session, and we also have a forum where we interject if we have any concerns or questions. So feel free to interject. Just locate the hand button and click the button. So just raise your hand, and I would halt to pick your concern. So if you have a thought, you have a question, you have an observation, and if also you have a comment, please do that freely. Raise your hand and unmute, then I would give you the floor to speak. So speak freely, ask your questions freely. It's an interactive forum. Of course, I'm your tutor, but then feel free to ask your questions and also contribute to the sessions. All right, so business analysis. What is business analysis? Let's introduce the subject. What is business analysis? So the subject speaks to analyzing a business. That's simply what business analysis is. In simple terms, what is business? You are analyzing a business. A business is a venture where one or two people come together to produce goods and services for profit. So that's in simple terms what a business is. And as an accountant or a chartered accountant in the making, we are supposed to analyze the business for our clients. Very important. So in very simple and very succinct terms, business analysis is the process of understanding a business problem or need. That's why the exhibits are provided to us in form of problems. Exhibits, you are engaged by a client to identify a problem and help them solve it. So in very simple terms, business analysis speaks to the fact that you have a problem or a need, and a client has asked you to identify what is causing it and then find the best solution to improve the performance, the processes, or the strategy for the business. So as chartered accountants, we need to think like business detectives. So you gather information, you ask the right questions, you look into the data or look at the data provided to you, work with stakeholders to recommend changes that create value. This is very important. I'll take that again. As a chartered accountant, you need to think like a business detective. So gathering information, asking the right questions, looking at the data provided to you, working with stakeholders to recommend changes that create value. Very, very important. So take note of that, and that's simply what business analysis is all about. So in the case study paper, we are required to perform business analysis from the standpoint of financial statement analysis. I've looked at that very explicitly in financial statement analysis chapter 2. We're also required as business analysts to look at, in the case study exams, financial data analysis, which we've looked at in chapter 3. So you need to go back to the videos if you've not really understood what the subject is all about. And also in the case study exams, as business analysts, we are supposed to also look at operational and strategic analysis, perform them based on this chapter 5 we are looking at, which is speaking to business analysis, and also chapter 6, which has to do with strategic and performance management tools, which we'll be looking at after this class or in our subsequent class. So there are these three, which is the financial statement analysis, the financial data analysis, and the business, the operational and strategic analysis, form the basis of the two equally weighted requirements. So you have two requirements in the case study paper, and the topics are presented individually but most of them are interconnected. So that forms the basis. So you are presented with past financial information, speaking to historical information, and it informs your current issues that is bedeviling that business or that entity. So the future-oriented operational and strategic analysis is what you are supposed to perform. So you're giving historical data. Then for the financial data analysis, it may be the present or current issues presented to you, and you're supposed to help them with, or help the business, the stakeholders, the board, with analysis that will form or make them or inform their judgment and decisions on how to answer or face the issues bedeviling the company. So the operational and strategic analysis is very important to perform it for the business to be able to handle those issues, and based on our recommendations, we'll forge or provide a roadmap for them to forge ahead and put the company on the right trajectory for success. This is very important. So value creation, value addition, and value proposition is what we chartered accountants are to provide for business. And that's why we are business analysts in the case study. So that's a brief introduction to what the business analysis is all about and how we approach that in the case study paper. All right, so let's look at Unit 2 if we don't have any questions. Are there any questions, observations, or any contributions? Any questions so that we can run to chapter or the second unit? Okay, so by way of the second unit, we'll be looking at operational and strategic analysis, speaking to business trusts and ethical awareness. This involves a comprehensive review of all current and future business aspects. It emphasizes decision on most appropriate course of action. So we have the operational day-to-day running of the business, and we have the strategic, that's the top management and strategy formulation section of the business. And in speaking to business trust and ethical awareness, in the case study paper, we generally have to comprehensively review all the current aspects of the business, from operational to strategic to tactical, and we will emphasize areas that need attention and also provide appropriate courses of action for the business to decide. So that's what operational and strategic analysis are all about, and that looks at business trust and ethical awareness to help provide advice to the company, and that's where we come in as chartered accountants. So the operational and strategic analysis involve identifying, analyzing, and considering factors, statements, and explanations related to current business activities and operational delivery. So we are looking at the day-to-day running of the organization, the strategic, the long-term plans, implementation, and strategic design the organization puts in place to make the company a going concern. And that speaks to strategy. Then tactical speaks to how to navigate the current business space, the macroeconomic and micro environment of the business, analyzing strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats of the business. So that involves operational and strategic analysis, and which we're supposed to perform to help the business move on a positive trajectory. So if it's a negative trajectory or looking at its antecedents in the past, we need to really help them identify and analyze all these factors based on the business activities, so we can provide value proposition that would create value and make the organization a good going concern that is profitable. Very important. So we need to consider the future routes and activities, and that is strategic, taking into account the internal and external factors, like I've said, and also potential changes. So that's the nitty-gritties we are performing in the business or the analyzing of the business. We need to analyze the full spectrum of activities, the overall business, to detailed units, the streams, the operational analysis, every area of the business. We need to look at what they are doing, how they could improve on what they are currently doing, or what they are not doing that could be proposed to help the business move forward. So analytical techniques assist in helping businesses perform better. And as analysts or business analysts, chartered accountants are to use these techniques and these tools to be able to help business analyze or foster understanding and integrating these tools to help them to perform better. And these tools will be discussed in chapter 6. We have the strategic management tools, we have the performance management tools. So for example, strategic management tools like the PEST tool analysis, we have the SWOT analysis, we have the Porter 5 model, we have the Boston Boston Consulting Group matrix, and several tools we'll be looking at. Then we have also the performance management tools like balance scorecard. We have several of them that we use to help analyze businesses. These are technical and analytical tools that will help us boost the company's performance. And the business trust and ethical awareness help us to also apply professional ethical standards and careful consideration in business and the topics that are brought before us. Don't forget, ethical issues or the ethical areas of the business, ethical awareness and the ethical requirements are not provided expressly in the case study requirements, but we are to identify ethical issues and speak to them. So there will be ethical issues, but they are hidden in the exhibits, and you need to identify them and bring them to the fore in the case study exam. So applying professional skepticism will help you pick out those ethical issues. So standards and careful business considerations in looking at the behavior of the business, topical areas, scenarios, and issues presented will help us identify business trust issues and also pinpoint ethical challenges the business is facing. So taking note of that, we should be able to provide context to everything that has to do with the operational and strategic analysis in the case study paper. So professional accountancy bodies provide ethical guidance. We'll look at that in chapter 7 of the case study material as we go ahead in understanding how ethical guidance is provided by IFAC and also ICAN, and also applying these standards to businesses may be challenging, but then it's rewarding at the end, and it helps put the company on the right track of compliance to ethical and good standards. Very key. So we are required to have high ethical awareness as chartered accountants in making, to also identify potential ethical areas that the company is not performing well. So in analyzing, evaluating, and applying this professional judgment to resolve ethical issues, this skill is required for us as chartered accountants, and to help boost our confidence in practice and in also primarily answering case study questions, the exhibits, and addressing ethical issues. Ethical issues are like 20% of your marks, without which it will be you have slim chances of passing case study if you don't identify ethical issues in requirement 1 and requirement 2. So it's the examiner's requirement, and he's keen on you identifying ethical issues in the case study paper. So take note, as ethical concerns may not be explicitly labeled in the case study exhibits. As much as they are, they will not state a header like these are ethical issues, but reading in between the lines, you should be able to decipher and pinpoint them. So thorough understanding of business operations from case study papers we've looked at. There are several papers on case study, about 22 diets currently. From November 2014 till date is 22 diets, and there are several we've worked on with their reports. So going through them is crucial for both operational strategic analysis and also ethical considerations. So you need to achieve this through logical and a structured approach, looking at the headers. So there are headers and subheaders. If you look at the November 2019 report, we followed that format. So you have the use of data and information as the first header. Then you have the second as professional tools. Then you have the third as analytical skills. Then the fourth, you have it as issues and options. And you have the fifth, which is very important, ethical issues on your professional skepticism. And the sixth, applying your evaluative skills and judgment. Then the seventh, which is your conclusion, and the eighth, your recommendation. So these 8 boxes or the 8 headers help us and provides a roadmap in navigating the landscape of passing case study, which is very important. So, and that format is also applied in practice. It may not be that same exact format, but the case study paper has provided us a guide on how reports are supposed to be structured in real time. And I can tell you from practice that that same header the case study paper applies is somehow graphical. It may not be prototype of what we do in practice, but that's how the reporting format looks like, especially for my internal audit reports. I've been in the internal audit space now for over 5 years, and that's generally the structure on how we write the report. So it's practical, not just for passing exams, but in practice it is. So including your professional skepticism and identifying business trust issues, speaking to ethical issues is very key. And it requires unambiguous conclusions. After you've done the 6 boxes, you must come up with conclusions and recommendations, which is very, very important. So that speaks generally to the operational and strategic analysis, the business trust and ethical awareness that is necessary for business analysis in not just the case study exams, but also in the business world. Very, very important. All right. So any question? We've just rounded up unit 2. We're trying to run fast so that we can cover up if possible. Hopefully, we should be able to round up this business analysis chapter 5 today if we really understand what we're saying. Any questions, any contributions, observations, so we can move? Okay, I believe our silence means we are consenting and we are understanding what we're speaking to. Okay, so let's look at specifically the operational and strategic analysis in the case study exams. Operational and strategic analysis in the case study exams. So, analyzing the case study information, the exam paper provides the business scenario with relevant aspects, speaking to the exhibits. So the exhibit contains information for structured analysis of operations of the business, strategic formulations, and potential ethical issues. So largely it considers non-financial information linked to the financial statements or financial data. And also you may be provided with analytical tools, which we'll look at in chapter 6, speaking about tools like PESTEL, SWOT, Porter 5's model, and also several tools that are embedded in the study text, and they are unlikely to ask for full production of this analysis. So you may be tested on few of these analysis, and you are expected to include relevant aspects and focus on discussions on operational and strategic issues. So you must be prepared to use any of these techniques, any of these tools accurately in speaking to the case at hand. And that is why your non-financial analysis and being able to decipher and integrate financial and non-financial data, it's very important. And that is why practice, like I said, is crucial to becoming competent and fast in the case study exams. You have 4 hours, and in doing this analysis, it will be very challenging if you have not practiced any of these past papers. And that is why we've integrated into the lectures that after every 2 chapters, we'll be able to look at a past paper. So looking at the past paper, I will speak to the numbers, give you the report. But then it's now your responsibility to go back and practice by yourself. Look at those numbers, how it's integrated and how it's presented. And you practice them, not just reading. You cannot just read the report and expect to perform. You also have to write, time yourself, and prepare the report by yourself. And that is why it's crucial. The examiner is saying it's crucial to become competent by practice. Practice can only make you competent, not lectures, not listening. Listening would sprout you, it will give you the idea on what to do. But your actual practice, no, just imagine a footballer now listening to the coach every day but does not play the ball. And that footballer cannot be a star. So that's practically what it means in the case study paper also. It's good we come for lectures, come for live classes. It's good. We go to YouTube, go to my videos to understand the subject. So that it will now make you sit down and write it, practice it by yourself. That's the only way to be competent and fast. Because the 4 hours is challenging. It's not enough. I must tell you, that's one of the biggest challenge. And it's part of why you are examining the case study. Time management. You are being examined on how to manage time. So 4 hours is not enough. But you see, when you practice, you become competent, your confidence is boosted, and you become fast. You just know what to do with practice. So these techniques aim to identify positive and negative. In your operational and strategic analysis, you identify them, the internal and external issues, and the aspects the business is facing. In your evaluation, you'll be able to point them out. So you need to integrate broader analysis into your focused answers on every tested aspects, looking at each of the exhibits and each of the dual requirements. You have requirement 1 and 2. So you need to integrate this broader analysis in producing your answers and your report. Very important. Also, using an industry awareness. You're not expected to have detailed specific industry knowledge, of course. Depending on the industry that is tested, whether it's hospitality, banking, FMCG, the last diet he tested, manufacturing, the information may indicate a well-known sector to you, but you need to consider current industry issues. For example, recession impact on the economy, which will definitely affect the business you're analyzing. What is the wider economy impact on the industry? For example, currency devaluation and several others. So the action of top companies in the sector, you need to consider it, moving from manual commerce to electronic commerce and other investments. So as a candidate that is hoping to do very well in the case study paper, you need to regularly read financial and business news. Very important. Every news, every financial data reports you see online, on LinkedIn. And for your information, if you're not on LinkedIn, please go on LinkedIn. You get a lot of information there about your profession, about your field, especially in finance, audits. You need to regularly stay abreast of this and read them. These are factors affecting clients and business activities. So as candidates, get used to this information. They will help you broaden your horizon in understanding business issues. You understand general policy changes, exchange rates, inflation, and how the specific industry issues are intertwined among each other, legal rulings, general commercial publicity. So the wider context in your answers need only a few sentences because you need to be brief and succinct in providing answers to whatever it is you are analyzing. So the case study paper are written in advance, including relevant new commercial factors as wider context if significant real-world events occur after affecting this scenario. So the case study paper, he said, is written in advance because you will have performed your practice and you also have a pre-seen that will come before the unseen. But in analyzing the wider context, you need to understand what the wider context is all about and all the issues bedeviling the company. Once you've practiced these things, you've understood them by looking at a lot of documents, articles, reports, you'll be able to provide context on the day of the exam. And that is why writing could be a challenge for some candidates. I tell people case study paper is almost 90% writing. The calculation is less than 10%. So it's a writing paper, it's a report paper, it's a communication paper. So if you have a challenge writing, you may have a challenge passing case study seamlessly. So you need to understand that about the structure of the paper. It's a writing paper and you need to understand how to write it. This is key. All right, so speaking to the operational and strategic analysis in the examination. Operational analysis, you may be involved in considering issues like new opportunities and limiting factors that could affect those opportunities, and also future operations or day-to-day running of the company. So the operational analysis of the company is part of what we do in the examination. On a day-to-day basis, you'll be provided with the data, on what the organization is facing and how to mitigate those challenges. Then speaking to areas that are affecting the business interaction with customers, suppliers, like maintaining quality, maintaining the interaction, the flow of business processes, are areas of operations we need to look at and will be presented to us in the case study. Then strategic analysis speaks to the top strategy formulation unit, speaking to management and those charged with governance. Usually it deals with long-term business planning, often linked to the wider context. And it involves identifying and using relevant case study data to focus on answers or provide business context. So question phrasing and also speaking to consider the benefits and risks of action are what could be our courses of action or what is presented to us in the paper. So we need to consider what the business should do to mitigate or improve whatever situation that is said it's a drawback or a bottleneck for the company. So in form of our analysis, looking at the 6 boxes, we need to integrate this conversation and also provide conclusions and recommendations for our clients. This is very important. So that speaks to how operational and strategic analysis is presented in the case study and in the requirements and how we are supposed to perform them. Okay, so those first 3 units are in the case study pack, the old case study pack. But this new unit 4, I integrated it myself because the new updates has sustainability reporting. And that is essential for us to be able to understand how to apply this in the case study exam. So sustainability reporting is not new to us, but then it's emphasized in this new syllabus. And that's why we brought it in for you to understand. In case you see it in the case study paper, you will not be wondering, what is sustainability reporting? What's ESG and all those complex terms? So chapter 4 will be looking at this practically. So it's highly relevant, speaking to sustainability reporting, because the examiner may test candidates on emerging business trends and how they affect strategic decision making, risk management, and stakeholder communication. So here's how to connect sustainability reporting to the scenario or whatever it is that is brought before us in the case study exam. So in the case, we may be provided with a fictional company that might be facing stakeholder pressure, regulatory changes, or reputational challenges. Sustainability reporting becomes a way to demonstrate transparency, manage risks, and show long-term value creation. This is very important. So we need to understand that sustainability reporting would help a business to be able to benchmark on what it has been doing and what it's supposed to do to ensure it's going concern. Take note of that. So in the case study paper, looking at sustainability and the future of the company is what the case study may be testing. And it becomes imperative for us to be able to integrate sustainability reporting in the exams. So what is even sustainability? What does it mean? Sustainability reporting is when a company publicly shares information about how its activities or its operations affect the environment, the society, and the economy. So it's not just financial statements, SCI, SFP, cash flow statements, and other notes to the account. No, it's not about that. So sustainability report captures the whole activities and impact of the company on the environment, the society, and the economy. So it shows how the business is managing issues like climate change, resource use, employee welfare, community impact, and governance generally. So that speaks to, so for example, a company or a manufacturing company reports its carbon emissions, waste reduction efforts, worker safety programs, and community projects alongside its annual financial results and financial statements. You see, that's what sustainability reporting generally speaks to. And there are some standards like IFRS S1 and S2 or the Global Reporting Initiative that has come to play, which we'll be looking at subsequently as we speak to this subject. So generally, value creation and sustainability speaks to transparency, managing risk, and showing long-term value. The value proposition, it's very, very conspicuous when it comes to sustainability reporting. So the concepts and principles we must understand as candidates is that sustainability reporting is not just about environmental issues. So it covers, like I said, environmental, social, and governance factors, speaking to how the company manages climate change, like I said, how its activities affect the environment, the society, and the economy. So that's generally, or looking at the wider area of sustainability reporting. Also, integrated reporting is part of sustainability reporting. It connects financial performance with non-financial performance. So you are integrating the numbers with the whole picture. So financial performance with non-financial performance. For example, like I said earlier, the carbon footprint, employee well-being, community impact. You are integrating the reports together. And that's what sustainability is all about. So IFRS S1 and S2 is relevant. And you can see that the global accounting space and the bodies regulating accounting have come up with IFRSs. This first section, section 1, speaks to the general sustainability related disclosure and requirements. And section 2 speaks to climate related disclosures, risks, opportunities, strategy, metrics, and targets. So you could broaden your horizon by looking at these two IFRSs to understand more about sustainability reporting. So in the case study paper, you may be presented with a scenario where a company operates in a sector with high environmental impact. So for example, manufacturing, energy, mining. So these spaces where these sectors are domiciled, IFRS 2 type disclosures could be expected in a case scenario presented to you in the exams. So take note of it as we look. So in applying or the business analysis application of sustainability, you can identify sustainability risks where a company could face, for example, regulatory penalties for not complying to the standards or laws and regulations of the land. Also, loss of market access. A company could be banned from accessing the market. So these are areas of sustainability risk you could identify. And also opportunities, areas like attracting ESG-focused investors and entering green markets. So these are areas we could apply and could be provided to us to apply our analysis in the exams. So it's recommended to embed sustainability in also corporate strategy. We could also recommend that in our analysis. For example, investing in renewable energy, ethical sourcing, and community projects, and also reporting progress transparently. So these are recommendations we could provide in our analysis if we are asked to, in any of the requirements, such request from the examiner. So speaking to examples that could be provided in case study terms, in a case where a company is losing major contracts because it lacks sustainability credentials, your business analysis in writing should assess the gap. What's the gap? What's the challenge? It could be no reporting or poor ESG performance. So we could recommend adopting IFRS S1 like we saw and S2 frameworks to improve investor confidence. So this is practical now that we could apply in the case study. Also to show how better reporting could unlock funding and also improve brand image and reduce regulation risks. So these recommendations could culminate in these results. Very important. And in the ICAN case study, sustainability reporting is a strategic lever, and we could leverage on it if a case study requirement is presented to be able to provide context and value to our client in form of advice. So it's about linking long-term business viability with transparent and credible disclosures that build trust, support growth, and adds value to the organization. This is very important. So just generally the new or what has been injected in the current syllabus about sustainability reporting. We may be aware of it, but then it's emphasized because it's a current issue and what ICAN wants us to understand practically. All right, so any questions, any contributions so far from what we've... okay, I'm seeing a chat now by one of us. Okay, James is saying we should... don't worry, please feel free to interject and speak, but it's also good. Please state those IFRS that highlight sustainability again. I didn't get it. Okay, I'll share the slides. So going back to it is IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. So going back to the slide, IFRS S1 speaks to general sustainability related disclosure requirements. So it's on slide 48. Don't worry, I'll share the slides after the class. Don't fidget, you get the slides. Then IFRS S2 is climate-related disclosures, speaking to risk, opportunities, strategy, metrics, and targets. So if you are maybe trying to write, maybe as I'm flipping through the slide, I'm fast, don't worry, you get the slides. The materials, I prepared them for you, so you'll get the slides, don't worry. After the class, I'll share it, and we can go through the slides again. Okay, so thank you for that question, and please feel free to interject. Or you can speak freely. You can halt me if I'm fast. If you have a question on observation, please speak freely. It's a very democratic class. AA is on the call, so AA is always in the class. I think we are much more today. So you have a question, just raise your hand. I will stop. I will see your hands raised. Or you can even just interject and say, I have a question, please. And I'll give you the floor. So feel free and let's make it more interactive. All right, so having spoken to Unit 4, Sustainability Reporting, like I said earlier, is not in the study text. It's a new update which I integrated or added from the current syllabus review. So another update in the current syllabus review speaks to responsible investment and equator principle. This is not also in the new study text, is a new topic as reviewed in the new syllabus. So responsible investments and equator principles are important because they signal a shift in how businesses assess funding and how businesses manage projects and how they also respond to ethical, social, and environmental concerns. So here's how to break it down for business analysis and how to analyze it in the exam. Responsible investment speaks to investment decisions that consider environmental, social, and governance factors along financial returns. So they are intertwined like sustainability. So responsible investments, you will not just invest. Businesses invest with environmental and social and governance factors in mind. So they don't just invest to get returns, prepare financial statements and see how the numbers are. No, they have to consider these factors, and that speaks to how responsible companies are, how responsible entities are. So invariably you are saying if these factors are not considered, then businesses are irresponsible. You can look at it that way. So that's what responsibility or responsible investments speak to. So its relevance in our case study is that if a fictional company or an exhibit comes, that a company is seeking funding or attracting investment or investors, you must assess whether it meets these ESG criteria. If they want to invest in that space or that business landscape, do they integrate ESG? Are they ESG conscious investors? And if the answer is no, it may avoid companies with poor sustainability into that space where they have governance lapses or unethical practices. So not just businesses coming to invest and make money back. You have to look at their activities and how ESG is integrated into their framework. You might also recommend ESG improvements as candidates to attract capital. So for example, adopting renewable energy, improving labor standards, and all that could help provide context in our case study paper. So, for example, a company is trying to list or get listed on the stock exchange or secure institutional funding. You could suggest a responsible investment framework in this ESG order to show commitments to long-term sustainability or sustainable returns. Yes, AA, I saw your hand up. Please go ahead. Go ahead freely. Yeah, AA, I saw your hand. Please unmute and speak. Maybe you are speaking. You're
Get
not.
clarity on this. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. You can hear you now.
Okay. So I just want to get clarity on this sustainability reporting. From the look of things, it's looking like it's more relevant to the public interest entities. Is not is it something that, for instance, if one is an accountant in an SME, you can introduce to them just to see how they can improve as a business, or is it majorly for public interest?
Okay, thank you for that question. They may not affect small and medium scale businesses. Like you said, it could be recommended, but generally, sustainability reporting speaks to larger companies that are required to publish annual reports. Some SMEs and smaller companies may not be required by law to publish annual reports. So they may not be bound by this. So generally it speaks to mostly listed companies, bigger entities that will need this for now. But then as time goes on, I believe as the business unfolds, maybe SMEs and smaller businesses will be integrated. So like you said, I agree. You could advise them to follow the same trajectory, but then for now, it's an emerging issue or an emerging development. So it's actually tailored towards bigger companies because most big companies are not even aligning with these topical issues. So I believe the current business space want to get them to align, then I think it will cascade down to small and medium scale businesses and also smaller businesses. Yeah, so in answering your question succinctly, it's mostly for public interest or public listed companies for now. Yeah. I hope you're okay with that little submission.
All right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very fine.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that question. So speaking to responsible investments, we're talking about how businesses and the example that could be provided and how we could suggest a responsible investment framework that integrates ESG, which could culminate in long-term sustainable returns, encompassing just financials, but the general ESG area of that company or the operations. So the second one is equator principle, and it means a risk management framework. Equator principle is a risk management framework for financial institutions, banks, and non-banks and other financial institutions to assess and manage environmental and social risks in large-scale projects, often used in project finance. So equator principles are targeted towards banks and financial institutions to be able to also integrate this ESG framework. And it's a risk management framework that helps them be proactive, not just to manage risks, but also to manage opportunities. The key criteria applies to projects above a certain cost threshold or benchmark and requires compliance with standards on human rights, environmental protection, and stakeholder engagement. So that's the criteria for these financial institutes. On most of the projects they embark on should be at a high standard and it should be complied with, especially with the CBN regulations. If it's in Nigeria, that's what will help them succeed in that space. So in the case study exams, if a company is embarking, or a bank or a financial institution is embarking on a large infrastructure or expansion project, opening branches in different places, following the equator principles will only fund it if it meets this standard. So the criteria could be, this is what you do, these are the principles you should follow, this is the framework that should be set in place, without which the bank may not be able to successfully carry out these projects except they meet the principles of this equator that has been presented to us. So it's important that if a case study requirement is presented to us, let's understand these criteria and understand what equator principles are all about. It's almost the same thing with the sustainability reporting, and it's just to ensure that ESG, the wider context, is integrated into project financing and any infrastructural development financial or non-financial institutions want to provide to the public. Very important. So as part of our business analysis as candidates, you could highlight project finance risks where if the company ignores these principles, it may lose funding or face costly redesigns. So the criteria or the prerequisite to getting funding could be that these equator principles are integrated into the bank's framework and they'll be able to get those funding. So you need to think around that. And an example is provided of a fictional business that wants to build a new factory abroad. You might recommend as a student or as a candidate that the company should ensure it complies with equator principles to secure international project finance and avoid any delays from community oppositions by ensuring they are socially compliant or also compliant to environmental regulators in that space where they are operating. So these are examples that could be presented to us. Let's take note of them. So how to use the responsible investments or the equator principles in the exam. When writing your report or the memo, you need to link responsible investments to funding opportunities and also securing investor confidence. And also link equator principles to project risk assessment and also funding eligibility. Very important. So take note of these nuggets as we prepare, as we practice for the exams. Also show how adopting this can reduce reputational, regulatory, and finance risk, operational risk, while aligning it with the overall corporate or the business strategy. This is key in how to use this in the case study exam. So because it's a new addition to the case study paper, I would like you to relook at it, go back and reread it. Then that IFRS S1 and IFRS S2, for those that are writing SBR, is also in SBR. So please look at it critically, go online. There are a lot of documents online. ICAN has released a circular today that by the end of August, your study text will be ready. So it's good news. But then you can also, before the new study texts are released, you can also go through these principles. They are new and they may be incorporated not just for case study, but for those that are writing SBR also. All right. So, any questions so far? Any questions for what we've looked at so far? Any questions? Okay. Means we are understanding or deciphering what we're speaking to. Okay, so before we go on break by 9, let's look at Unit 6, Techniques for Answering Examination Questions Related to Business Analysis. So like we know, if you're writing for the first time or you are attempting the paper, we are provided with exhibits and they are pointers through what is in the case, what are the criteria, what are the facts of the case, what are the factors provided to us. So there are numbered and bullet points indicating concerns in those exhibits. And they are also listed alternatives. And these exhibits are quite much, and that is why you need to read fast and be able to read in between the lines to be able to point out and pick the relevant criteria, the relevant facts and factors. So So we are expected as candidates to be able to identify and comment professional. Your comment is your professional opinion on those criteria, those facts, and those factors bedeviling the business. You need to review and act on concerns, like any audit management letter addressing weakness from auditors, ethical issues pinpointed, audit issues, audit findings that have not been resolved. So we should really between the lines and take note of these concerns. Then we need to make choices with reasons, or also prioritize them from alternatives. Very important. And we need to apply the audit management letter structure, speaking to identification or response to an incident or issue. So we are both analyzing previous data based on the exhibits, and we are looking at how to also consider its impact, speaking to positive, detrimental, neutral, or uncertain issues in the case. So the exhibit generally provides information around this. So you need to evaluate the consequences of each aspect of what is provided to us. Quantify, if possible, every significant and material area. Then at the end of the day, we need to make our decision, which is a conclusion, and provide recommendations. So you need to prioritize material issues, every material impact. Materiality is very important. Issues that could halt or bring the business to a close should be given high priority, high risk areas. Then issues that are of low concern, so the high, medium, low method we use in risk management and risk analysis could be employed for the case study. So as you read through the exhibits, you could have high material issues, so concentrate on them, prioritize them. You have medium issues, well, give them medium attention. Then you also have low issues or low risk issues, give them low attention. So the high, medium, low method could be employed in providing answers in your analysis. Very, very important. Also, process improvements should also be taken note of, and also the high, medium, low risk issues and their impact, the effect on the company's operations should be taken note of. Very key. Also be aware of underlying financial impact within the appropriate time frame, and also that of non-financial impact also and the analysis you are performing. So financial factors, numerical criteria, other information could indicate material and financial issues. So you need to take note of them. And there are other factors like relative importance to the revenue stream that is presented to you, potential impact on the whole or part of the business, speaking to maybe holding companies, a group company, the main subsidiary or the main group or the subsidiaries operations could affect the business as a whole. So take note of that. There could be also segment reporting, global segments, local segments that could be presented to you. Should look at or take note of external and internal financial yardsticks for yes or no decisions, whether it's requirement 1 or 2. Then also possible financial effect of acting or not acting based on the exhibits and the information provided. What's the effect of not acting? What could be the effect of acting? Then use your business common sense. Use business common sense and your analytical skills in both financial and non-financial analysis. This is key. Then your professional skepticism is crucial. You are an analyst, so you need to be skeptical with the figures. You may not use it as heading. Professional skepticism is not a header. You just have ethical issues, but you need to be skeptical in writing. So demonstrate it through integrated analysis and evaluation of all you are doing in requirement 1 and 2. So that's generally how to perform business analysis in the case study exams. And we need to take note of that in preparing for the paper. Okay, so it's already 9 o'clock, and I think we've landed safe by completing Unit 6 on techniques for answering examination questions. All right, so that will be the end of this chapter. Is there any question Any contribution or observation? Any question, contribution, or observation?